Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
Rock Talk.
This is Grok Talk. We're on the phone with Dan Gainor from the Media Research Center. I have Rick Olson, Mike Rogers, Skip Murphy, and myself in the studio. We're running from 10 to noon today instead of the regular 9 to 11 because we lost power for an hour. There's a rhyme. Didn't even know I was going to be a poet. But we wanted to move on with Dan. Dan, I spend a lot of time visiting websites like realclimatescience.com and Anthony Watts, What's Up With That, and Climate Depot, and places like that. IceCap, we've had Joe DeLeo on the show many times, so we're pretty well versed in the whole climate thing. But the media, and this is one of the things we wanted to talk about, has a completely different perspective. And of course, you guys are all on top of that stuff. Let's talk about the media and how they handle climate.
Well, first off, a shout out to my buddy Mark Morano from Climate Depot, just because Mark used to work for us. And he does
great!
Such a fantastic
They
job.
have their movie coming out.
Yeah, he has. He's got his movie coming out. I know there's a bunch of movie clips in there that he got from us.
Oh,
and
good.
I just saw him the other day, so I know that's going to be fantastic. And I wish I had the ducats to go to Paris to see that.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is an issue that the media have covered poorly. Oh, I think, let's see, what's a reasonable number of years? I think we're probably looking at about 125 years. And that's only because I haven't really researched much back further than that.
Mm-hmm.
For a point of perspective for people listening to the timeline, the little ice age that the lefty climate nerds don't want to acknowledge, but pretty much all you have to do is read history and you see it happen. The little ice age ended around 1850. It included some really awful times where New York Harbor froze over.
Right.
Okay, so not exactly good times. So in the 1890s, the media were talking, because scientists were talking about this. It was a cold time, and they're talking about another ice age. So that meant people living in that era who remembered 1850, were like, oh, crap, this is not good. This could be bad. We just remember the little ice age. Then you get into the 1920s and 1930s, the Dust Bowl era, and they were talking about global warming. And this is a big thing. Scientists, so the media hype global warming. Then you get into the post-World War II Cold War America, and things turned cold, and they were back talking about global cooling, up to and including around the time of the first Earth Day in 1970. So I mean, the whole history of this. Then, after a few years of that, and there was this vague era where, in the 70s, where then some of them were talking about cooling, some of them were talking about warming. You heard cooling stories up into the 90s from the media, but then you start talking about warming, and then they realize, oh, that doesn't work either, because people are reminding us about cooling and warming and cooling and warming. So then it became climate change. And this is the most self-supporting media claim in the history of mankind. Because climate change, climate has always changed. It just happens. If climate didn't always change, we wouldn't have come out of the ice age. If climate didn't change, and by the way, nobody driving around SUVs at the time. Earth came out of the ice age. Climate always changes. But what it enables the media to do, and they do it, and ABC is the worst of this bunch, any single weather story, the hype. Oh my gosh, there's flooding in Dubuque. Oh, it snowed in Colorado. Yeah, because that never happens. There's somewhere in the Northeast, there's some sort of fountain, maybe it's the Midwest, I don't know, there's some sort of fountain that grows. Oh, it's in New York. Fountain that grows every year because it gets cold. They keep this fountain stays, and it just adds ice, and it gets taller and taller. And last year, the year before, it reached a height nobody had ever seen. And so, we get winters like that. We get winters like we had the last couple of winters where you get close to having an all-time freezing percentage of the Great Lakes. And the media talk about global warming, and people laugh at them. But they do. They will say any weather event. remember after Hurricane Katrina, we just had the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. After Hurricane Katrina, Al Gore famously said how we're going to get more of these. And yet we've now passed a 10-year time period where we've not had a serious hurricane strike America. And yes, Hurricane Sandy was Category 1 when it hit America. It just happened to hit in a place it doesn't ordinarily hit, which is why it did a lot of damage. So when you talk to journalists about this, they say, well, there's been more serious weather events. And then when you point out to them that that's a flat-out lie, they just say, oh, you're a denier. You'll see actual professional news organizations use the term denier to the point where finally even the Associated Press style manual came out and said that's not accepted terminology because, of course, it basically says you're a Holocaust denier, which was the intention of people who did that. So that takes us to the climate conference where from the first night on, they covered the first night, ABC, CBS, and NBC, 15 minutes of the climate conference because they only acknowledge there's one answer, and anybody who doesn't agree with them, because media know everything. If you know any reporters, you know that they're right 110% of the time.
Actually, that leads into my question. Since you've been an editor and you've been involved for 20 years in media, print, online, and whatever, you've obviously dealt with a lot of reporters, be they actual beat reporters or if they work at wherever, a location, or if they're just people who provide stories to you. What's the general... are these guys idiots? Are they smart? What's the deal?
There's a hubris in journalism, and I'm sure I'm affected by it too. Mm-hmm. You get a bunch of journalists around, and they will sit there and they will make fun of everything and everybody. They, as a collection, journalists think they're smarter than every other group. So they'll either criticize the politicians. He's an idiot. Oh, she's an idiot. Oh, they're idiots, or whatever. They'll criticize politicians. They'll criticize science. They'll criticize anybody. So if you disagree with them, you're an idiot. You're a knuckle-dragging idiot. You're a moron. And that's how they will treat you in copy, even if they're supposed to be theoretically neutral. So what you've got. Do you remember the Journal list?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Run by Washington Post, Ezra Klein again. Mm-hmm. If you look at what people had to say in those comments, particularly Dave Weigel, who oddly enough got rehired by the Post, it's all digs on politicians. They hate this person. Oh, they hate that person. Oh, this person's stupid. It's because that is how journalists think. And so the idea that they're ever wrong, if you ever criticize a journalist, they get the hair up on the back of their neck. I'm not wrong. They could have misspelled your name.
Oh, it's happened.
And they want to blame you.
I've had my screaming matches with a couple. I was on my local hamlet's budget committee, and we're a well-to-do town, but very skinflint when it comes to spending money. And this particular very progressive local reporter tried to take me to task for saying, you should be taxing your citizens more and sending that money to places that need it, like L.A. and New York and Chicago, because there are people who are hurting there. And I keep saying, but they elect these stupid people who spend far more than they take in and make these deals with unions and yada, yada, yada. And literally a screaming match in the parking lot over this. And he just couldn't believe that it's these people's faults. It's my fault for not giving them more money. And you're right, it is a groupthink.
And ultimately, journalists think... and entertainment people, it's the same mindset. They think that every solution has a government solution.
Yes.
Yeah, every problem. Government can fix that. But then when they write about government, they'll write about government corruption. They don't connect the dots. Oh, well, let's see, the VA is corrupt and incompetent. Oh, let's see, the Secret Service is corrupt and incompetent. Oh, let's see, the Health and Human Services, corrupt and incompetent. IRS, corrupt and incompetent. You start going down the lines like, well, wait a second, maybe just government has gotten too big. Oh, no, the way to solve this is to get another government agency. Spend more money. They think government, the general attitude about government is the heroes. The government can take all of your money and then dole it out to you. They want, you look at they go to these events, these climate events, and they embrace whatever craziness the climate people are talking about. Climate people want us to live in urban areas. They don't want you to live in suburban or rural areas. They want us to jam us all in, packed in like Japanese sardines. Packed in wall to wall, each of us having only a couple hundred feet. Or if you live in a more rural area, have you seen the stories on the small house movement?
Oh, yeah. I've seen it on HGTV. I'm like, God, no.
No one wants to live. I'm 6'2". I live in a house. I'm single. I live in a house. I want room. I want space. I mean, why not just put me in a prison cell?
I'm up against a hard break, Dan, so why don't you let us know how people can reach you, and we'll say bye. People
can find me writing on newsbusters.org and on foxnews.com. You can find me on Twitter, Dan Gainor, DANGAINOR, no holds barred.
All right. Well, thanks so much for taking time to talk to us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You do the same.
All righty. Bye-bye. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.